Now, there's been links between the Kinahan cartel, obviously, and the Colombians for a long time, but the Clan del Golfo, which is a massive big cartel, came up during the investigation into the MV Matthew, and there has been suggestions that they are, where the Kinahans have been sourcing certainly some of their merchandise, and others too. I think George Mitchell has been linked to Colombia, to the purchasing of cocaine directly from the Colombians for a long time. In fact, on wiretap material that came up in a case that actually he wasn't charged in, but it was his phones wiretapped. He very much suggests that he has connections deep into Colombia. The Clan del Golfo are the largest organisation out there. And there's been 2 individuals arrested linked to what is being described as the Irish Mafia.
Yes, there's 2 British citizens were picked up in Medellin. And of course, people, the word Medellin, rightly or wrongly, is deeply associated with Pablo Escobar because it became a kind of an area that became the focus of the cocaine business for the whole world. Now, 2 English guys were arrested in an apartment. The Colombian police put out a video of them breaking into this apartment, and they have described these 2 men as liaisons between the Irish Mafia and the Clan del Golfo. So that's put out in their statement really clearly, and it said they were picked up as a result of an operation involving Interpol, and Interpol had a warrant out for these 2 people. They're allegedly members of a transnational drug trafficking network wanted by the authorities of England for the crimes of drug trafficking, arms trafficking, money laundering, and acting as front persons. And then it says, according to the investigation, the detainees have links to the Irish Mafia responsible for coordinating the trafficking of narcotics to the United Kingdom in alliance with the Clan del Golfo. So obviously the Clan del Golfo are, I think they're the biggest cartel in Colombia. And what happened probably since the days of Pablo Escobar, Pablo Escobar controlled the cocaine business from every step of the way, right up to the street dealers in the US. But that changed over the years, and the Clan del Golfo became wholesalers, really. They didn't really operate massively outside of their own territory. They were in charge of basically collecting the cocaine from the jungles, processing it, making it in labs, and then they would wholesale it to whatever criminal organizations they had deals with, and that was handed over to them in Colombia. They have, it is said, about 3,000 armed members, so they're a huge operation. I think it was, the figure given at one stage was that they were exporting 20 tons of cocaine a month, which, if you think of the MV Matthew, which was 2 tons, and we talk about that immense scale of that, but really they were doing 10 of those a month. Now, the Clan del Golfo had, particularly, I think they forged ties with European drug gangs, because obviously the traditional big bit of business for the Colombian cartels was dealing with the Mexican gangs who were then getting it into the US. That was seen as the primary market. But that has totally changed, according to all, law enforcement reports, that Europe started becoming this huge market for the South American cartels over the last decade and more, probably.
Yeah, because it's, Europol have repeatedly said the market isn't saturated yet.
Yes, and it boomed effectively. So what we were told about the Clan del Golfo, and which was in a lot of some of these Europol reports, was how super cartel figures, it is believed to have been Eden Gassanin of the Dino and Tito cartel, who we've spoken about many times, a very close associate of Daniel Kinahan, attended his wedding, that he was actually travelling to Colombia and struck a deal with the Clan del Golfo in Colombia itself. Yeah. And that.
And what year are you talking about?
Well, it's over a decade ago, and that,
so it was around the time of the wedding or before it.
Before it, I think.
So the wedding was at the summer of 2017.
2017. So you're talking about earlier on, and that this is, the Kinahans had this contact,
which was interesting because it was the same time. It was July of 2017 that the Irish father, Joe Packy Moore, 55-year-old, was discovered. He was found with his hands tied face down in a river,
Yeah.
15 kilometers from Medellin. And he was said it was very sort of sketchy, the information, but he had clearly been abducted and, he was bound, he was strangled and wrapped in bubble wrap. This was cartel stuff. And he was said to have been there as a representative for at the time, he certainly had connections with George Mitchell, the Penguin, but also in later times it was sort of said that he was there to do a bit of business for perhaps the Kinahans or somebody. He was doing business for one of the big ones, not the small guys. There's not very few people who have representatives or send representatives to Colombia.
No, and there's very few people the Colombians will deal with as well. So if you rock up with £1 million in your pocket, they're not going to just take you in. They have to have this trust and know you're legitimate. So, I mean, so Packy Moore is an interesting character, and I think he was a really long-term pal of George Mitchell's all their lives.
He was originally from Ballyfermot. But he was living in Spain.
He had been living in Spain. And he also was a very close pal of people that were associated with other West Dublin gangs, including the family and people associated with that. So, and there's pictures of some of those leading criminal figures that have been targeted by CAB with Packy Moore. But he basically, they have what is believed is there's a number of these liaison guys who live in Colombia. Other gangs such as the I always pronounce it wrong, the Morocco Mafia.
The Mocro Mafia.
Mocro Mafia. The
Mocro Mafia, yeah.
So they had key representatives living over there as well, and so they need people that are trusted to do these deals, to arrange money transfers. That they want to be dealing with everybody. So I mean, the Kinahans were said to have struck these deals, and if the Clan del Golfo can only deal with one or two people, that's what they want.
But such is the significance of Colombia now, really, to Ireland, that we have a Garda representative based out there in Bogota. And they're working as a liaison, essentially, with the Colombian police. And undoubtedly, the arrest of the two men, were they named?
They weren't named. They may be named at a later point when they come to court. But there was a statement put out
about specifically from Colombian police saying they were linked to the Irish Mafia.
Oh yeah, specifically from I can give you the guy's name. Not that it means anything to us, but the Colombian Police Brigadier General William Oswaldo Rincon Zambrano put out that statement saying they're linked to the Irish Mafia. Now, the Irish Mafia could be a broader term, but really, when that's being used internationally, it tends to refer to the Kinahans.
But definitely there's been a kind of a better relationship, obviously, and it's a few years now since the Garda representative was stationed out there, but it's a kind of an intelligence sharing role as well as liaison, if there's any Irish citizens out there, whatever, that are caught up, but they are used to share intelligence that's being picked up everywhere.
Yeah.
There's intelligence picked up in Ireland that can lead to the arrest of somebody in Colombia.
Totally. And what you see at the top of all of this is the huge interest the DEA have had in European drug gangs, which, if you think about it, doesn't make a lot of sense in one sense, because
enough troubles of their own.
You would have thought so, but what it is there's a recognition that these organisations are transnational organisations, that if you're just targeting their American wing, it's not going to damage the overall structure of the organisation. The Clan del Golfo was a key target as well for the DEA. The former leader, a guy called Ottonel, his real name Dario Antonio Usaga.
I remember talking about him. Wasn't he the guy who was into witchcraft?
He was into witchcraft, very sinister character.
Military style guy who lived in the hills and didn't kind of have any particular wealth to show, would have lived out in camps, and he was into very strange witchcraft.
Yeah, and there's very sinister stories about his treatment of women and even underage girls. But he used to sort of travel around the hills on a donkey. Ultimately, he got extradited, pled guilty really, really quickly. And even though he was on a donkey, he had to hand over $16 million. So he'd amassed a huge amount of wealth, but he didn't seem to come out of the hills of Colombia. But he was sort of ruled out with a very ruthless, violent streak. And there's a lot of these sort of right-wing, former right-wing paramilitaries that have become sucked into this really, really toxic, dangerous situation. And although a lot of these criminal organizations have been dismantled over the years, such as the Medellin cartel, and even key figures like Oternel being put behind bars, the production of cocaine continues to grow and grow. I mean, it's a phenomenal sort of model where even as they keep dismantling these organizations, it doesn't sort of impact on the overall ability for cocaine just
Well, the demand of it. So at the same time, each year in Medellin area, there's 500 at least murders and gangland style hits. So you might be better off being picked up by the police.
Yeah.
You might feel a little bit safer. At least you're on your way home somewhere, wherever these guys are going to.
I mean, it's a very, very ruthless world. But I suppose when you look at the huge amounts of money to be made, like even if you look at the MV Matthew, like, obviously there's the purchase of that cocaine, but the idea that drug gangs are buying container ships, I know we sort of get used to these ideas, but like it is phenomenal. I mean, that container ship, the MV Matthew, is due to be sold off for 10 million. I mean, there was no other purpose on that ship other than the shipping the cocaine. It is sort of...
it's one of Europe's favourite products.
Yes.
So, well, we look forward to more news on the Irish Mafia linked duo that have been lifted in Colombia trying to do deals with the cartels.
Very interesting. Yes, we will.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.